I'm Jody.
And I'm Beth.
And you're listening to the Blume Saloon,
a Judy Blume book club.
It's been so long since we've been here in the Blume Cocoon. Been a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, and it's cooler this week. It's super comfortable in here.
Mm-hmm. And you just got back from a pretty nice vacation road trip.
2-week road trip. It was really fun. My 3.5-year-old was a real trooper.
I bet you were worried beforehand.
I was so worried. We were in the car a lot, and he was really good. On the way home, he said, "Mom, that was an awesome road trip." So.
And where did you go again?
We went up to Oregon and Washington and drove around the Olympic Peninsula and saw mother-in-law, saw friends in Portland. It was a lot. It was really fun, though.
Yeah, jam-packed.
Yeah, jam-packed.
You're glad to be home, though?
Oh, yeah. And today he's at daycare, and I am glad not to have a 3-year-old attached to me.
They go through phases like that, right?
Yep. Need mom.
Yeah.
New spaces, new beds every night. Yeah.
Just a little update on Allison. I don't know if we even mentioned this, but she did have her baby.
Yay. So cute.
It's a boy. His name's Poe. Adorable. Still not sure when she'll be back here in the Blume Cocoon, but maybe in the next couple weeks. What else? We're pretty close to finishing this book. Then again, maybe I won't.
3 chapters, I think.
Yeah, we're going to cover 1 chapter today and then 2 chapters next week. And then we're going to move on to the next book. And we don't know what that'll be yet. I think we'll let the Parrotheads speak. I feel like we should do kind of an older teen novel next time.
Yeah, I think so too. Because this is kind of,
It's young. Yeah. It's it's nice, but I like to get into like real teen action.
Yeah, and I'd kind of like to read those because I don't think I read those really.
Did you read Forever?
Oh, I did read Forever, yeah. And Deanie?
Yeah, Forever and Deanie are the 2 that I'm thinking of.
I hope they vote for Deanie. Vote for Deanie.
What else? We have some odds and ends to tie up.
Oh, yeah. Didn't you check out the Parrot Head movie?
I did. The Parrot Head documentary. It's on Netflix, y'all. It is so fucking good.
I'm excited to watch it. We had such shit internet the whole time we were gone, but I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, it's really cheesy. And it's not cheesy in like a way that it's meant to be cheesy. It's like the editing looks like it was done in Apple Movie or whatever that free movie editing program that comes with your computer is.
When was it made?
Like this year.
Oh, man.
But it is so heartwarming and really amazing to see how these parrot heads, I almost said Blume heads, how these parrot heads come together as like a worldwide community. They have these regional parrot head groups. They're really into, just traveling together and going to shows together. And they do a lot of philanthropy and charity work and fundraising. And for some of these people, it's their life.
Yeah, I actually had no idea until this past weekend how serious people could be about music. Still, like real grown-ups with real jobs. My friends that we were seeing are super fish heads. And they like listen to people talking about fish concerts while watching them live. Apparently there's statisticians that like run stats and stuff on what songs they're going to play and what variations. And it's really crazy world. I had no idea until they were telling me about it.
I think Allison and I had a conversation about Grateful Dead like a few weeks ago, just about how they kind of had a resurgence. Like their second wind really came in the 90s.
Oh yeah, I remember you guys talking about that.
And then that's when Fish came about, really. It was in like the early 90s to late 90s. I remember, I went through a Fish phase in about 97. Yeah, and I think they probably really helped resurrect the Grateful Dead for a new generation.
Yeah, for sure.
Jam bands, man.
Can't get into them. Can't do it.
I have an appreciation for the musicality, for sure. And I really liked, I know this is blasphemous in the eyes of a real Fish head, but I really like the studio albums, Fish's studio albums. I remember Rift just was like really hit me to the core. I was a freshman in college, smoking pot, hanging out in the dorm, listening to Rift, laying on the floor. I mean, just one of those iconic moments, like getting lost in the music for the first time.
I had that same experience, except that I was lying there on the floor thinking, man, I really don't like this band.
Fair. I mean, you're definitely not the only one. But I do think the live shows are very tiresome.
Yeah. They had one playing at their house on a laptop while we were hanging out. Yeah, I don't get it.
There is a Grateful Dead documentary series.
Ooh.
Also on Netflix, I think. And I was tempted to check that out because I would like to learn a little bit more about
It's fascinating.
the phenomenon. Yeah, I'm really interested in these cultures, the subcultures that surround these bands, not necessarily the music itself.
Yeah.
Like the Jimmy Buffett fans, you know, they're really into trop rock. Have you heard of trop rock?
I have not.
Well, that is the genre that Jimmy Buffett started and spawned all these other trop rock bands, singer-songwriters that just sing about the good life, you know, living in Key West, living in the Caribbean. One of the parts of this documentary that I really loved was it focused on different trop rock musicians and about how this genre of music really changed their lives because it's one of the few genres that they've found as musicians that allows them to continuously tour and actually make money off of it because the fans are so rabid and the fans will always come out to the shows. The fans will follow them.
Wow, I had no idea that there was such a thing as trop rock or that it was like that. Wow. Wow.
Spoiler alert, but one of the most moving stories of this documentary. Sorry to keep talking about the documentary, but it's fucking awesome. This woman, she was in a swimming pool accident and she was paralyzed from the neck down.
Oh God, my nightmare.
I know. It's such a sad story. And she was really young when it happened and she was a huge Parrot Head at that point. So her Parrot Head community rallied around her, got in touch with Jimmy himself because she had 5 tickets to see him at 5 different shows, like the week after her accident happened. So he personally reached out to her in her hospital room, told her he'd personally send her a VHS tape of one of his concerts. And they just kept in touch over the years. And it's been something like 15 years.
Oh.
And they keep in touch. And she goes to every show when he comes to her town. And she goes backstage. And he told her that when you can walk again, save a dance for me. So this is her reason for wanting to walk again, so she can dance with Jimmy. She's like, I'm waiting for that dance. And she's actually like getting her movement back, which is fucking amazing.
Awesome. Yay, science.
Yeah, yay science. And yay Jimmy.
Yeah. Super fans.
Super fans. I love it. I kind of got lost in it and I kept having to remind myself, this is real. This isn't Spinal Tap or a mockumentary. This is real. What else? Oh, we wanted to tell you guys about the tubes.
Oh, yes.
Remember we talked about the tubes. We weren't sure what they were.
Pneumatic mail tubes? That was
not the pneumatic mail tubes. Although I love the vision of like Tony's friend from back in Jersey City, like shooting himself through the postal pneumatic tubes into Manhattan and just being picked up at the other end. But the tubes are really what they used to call the tunnel that the PATH train, which connects New Jersey and New York. And so I don't think they call it that anymore. I think they just call it the PATH. This was confirmed by my friend Nicole. But yeah, it makes sense. He took the train from Jersey City to Greenwich Village. That's where the other end of the tubes are. Yeah, not the new mats.
That's too bad.
One, two, three.
Roll call. All right, and here we go. We have, of course, our star, Tony. We have the asshole, Joel. He's not my favorite. God, Joel. We have Marty and Scott, who seem like good guys. Mm-hmm. We've got Bernice.
Oh, Bernice.
Yeah. Poor Bernice.
Uh-huh.
You'll see who she is in a second. We have Dr. Holland and Dr. Riley. They're just mentioned. They're just a couple of doctors. Dr. Fogel. We've got, of course, Carmela, Mom, Dad, Vic. We've got Ralph. And we have Corky and Lisa, love interests.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. It's a very tight chapter character-wise.
Very tight-knit. Yeah.
All right. Who wants to go first? You want to take the first half?
So this is chapter 8, y'all. So it's March. It's March. Tony's bummed because there's no snow. And it surprised me that like to remember that some areas get snow in March.
See, growing up in Minnesota, I was surprised there was no snow, and I actually wanted to Google if that was normal in New Jersey.
Look up some almanac.
Yeah, I didn't do it, but I wanted to.
So in Minnesota, when does the snow stop?
I mean, March is pretty normal to have a good amount of snow still.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really like solid spring until April.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Tony's really bummed about this lack of snow because Joel had gotten a toboggan for his birthday recently, and they were
fun.
planning on sledding down the hills at the golf course at the country club. But looks like they're going to have to wait till next year.
He's going to love it, though. Let me tell you. That is fun.
A toboggan is just like a sled, right?
Well, it's like a really cool sled. It's like long and like can go really fast, and somebody can kind of steer it. It's like a fancy sled.
Is it one of those wooden ones?
Yeah.
Okay, on like runners,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, on runners, so it can go really fast.
The ones that you see like nailed to the wall in Tahoe cabins.
Exactly. I believe you and I have witnessed one of those together.
Oh, yeah.
Perhaps attached your dog to it.
That's right, we did. Unnailed it from the wall and attached my little Pomeranian to it, and it was amazing.
It was the cutest thing almost I think I might have ever seen. It was so cute.
Oh, and we put she was carrying a 6-pack of Heineken.
Yeah, it was pretty cute.
And then there's a random paragraph about Tony's winter jacket being sent to the cleaners. Did you notice that this was just kind of weird?
Yeah, well, he was really upset about it last year when he had to still wear it. Oh. And I think they're kind of trying to show us again how the mom has changed and like with their richness bought him this in-between coat.
Oh,
that was my take.
That makes sense. I think I read a little bit too much into it because I was like, there must be a reason for this paragraph. And then I was like, what can this in-between coat be a metaphor for? So I thought maybe it represents... First I wrote boners, but I was like, no, no. And then I thought maybe this in-between coat represents Tony feeling like he's caught in between two worlds, rich and poor, Jersey City and Rosemont.
Or two ladies, Corky and Lisa.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, wow. So deep. Judy, we figured it out.
Yep. Layers.
So he's wearing this in-between coat. And that's all there is about that. And then the gang, so that's Tony, Joel, Marty Endo, and Scott Gold. They've established this regular hangout spot. It's called the Bon Sweet Shop. But sweet has an E at the end. So I kept wanting to read it the Bon Sweetie Shop, but it's not. It's like a diner. They're going to the Bon Sweet Shop. Yeah. So they go there after school pretty regularly. They go to get milkshakes. And they harass the waitress, Bernice.
They are little shits.
Such shits. I would smack their heads off if I were
Seriously.
Bernice. She has wild red hair and she chews gum. And she seems kind of sassy in kind of a diner waitressy kind of way. I like her. But she has had enough of these antics. What they do, and this is all Joel's idea, is they put her tip in the bottom of their gross milkshake glasses. One time even they put like 100 pennies in the bottom of Joel's milkshake glass when there was still milkshake left in it. So she would have to fish it out. So that's the last straw for Bernice. She hollers. She grabs Tony by the collar just as they're about to head out. And she really lets him have it. Page 132. I'm going to read this one. Do you want to be Joel? I'll be Bernice.
Okay, yeah, because I'm not sure what accent I'm feeling for Bernice. I think.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that.
I'm really bad at accents, so.
The only accent I can do is Australian.
No, I put all this pressure on you. I don't think. All right, you go for it. You be Bernice.
Should I just make her Australian?
Do it.
You lousy little kids. Lousy is hard to say in Australian. You lousy little kids. I ought to tan your hides. I ought to...
Get your hands off my friend, Joel said, or I'll call the manager.
You'd like that, wouldn't you? You'd like to see me get fired. What do you little rich kids know about earning a living? You think it's funny to make me fish around for a few lousy pennies? Well, let me tell you something. I need that money. I need that money. Gotta get the accent right.
You're doing a really good job.
And there's no place you can stick it that I won't reach in to get it. Your crummy 40 pennies buys me a loaf of bread. Did you ever think of that? Whew.
Oh, intense.
Yeah. After that, they never sit in Bernice's section again. And they always leave their tip right there on the table.
Yeah.
And then Tony says, I thought about Bernice buying that bread with our pennies for a long time.
That made me have a little bit of faith in him that he's going to turn out okay.
He just makes poor choices sometimes. And he doesn't know how to stand up for himself yet, sounds like.
Yeah.
But I remember that feeling of like realizing that your actions can really affect an adult in a negative way. I think when you're younger, you always think that they're just kind of impervious, or, they're kind of immune to like little kids being jerks. But I don't know if you ever were in a class where you made the teacher cry.
Well, I was a substitute teacher once, and a bunch of times I was a substitute teacher, but once in high school I was subbing, and all of my friends were in the class, and they were such little shits.
To you?
To me, yeah.
And you must have just been barely out of high school.
Oh no, I was still in high school.
You were subbing a class?
Yeah. I was just in like in the highest math class, and I was subbing for them.
You go, girl.
Well, and I had to get really mean. I actually said something really mean and almost made my friend's boyfriend cry.
You made him cry?
Yeah. You want to know what I said?
What?
He had been held back a year because he had failed math. And so I said to them all, if you don't stop it, you're all going to get held back a year like Cameron.
Oh my God, Beth. Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty harsh, but it worked. They all were quiet, and Cameron almost started crying, or did start crying. It felt pretty bad immediately.
I cannot even picture that. But
they were being so bad. They were all like swearing at me. My current husband, Sam, was in the class, and he was being a dick. Like, they all thought they could just do whatever they wanted. And I was like, no, we're going to learn math, guys.
Yeah. Usually, like, you would like just like put on a movie or something, but you wanted them to learn.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I also gave my brother his only ever detention.
You gave your brother a detention?
I did, and he was so mad. He punched the bathroom wall and made his knuckles bleed because he was so mad.
Wait, what did he do?
So he just kept swearing at me when I was supervising their study hall, and he wouldn't stop, and so I gave him detention. And it was his only detention he ever got in his whole life.
This is the best thing I've ever heard. So I've never really heard of a student subbing a class of her own peers.
Yeah, it was this whole philosophy at our school of the students like being in charge of their own discipline and disciplining each other. And it didn't always work that well.
That sounds like a really horrific social experiment, like Stanford prison experiment style. You really took that power to a new level. I love it. I was kind of thinking in terms of the opposite, like students making their teacher cry. And I remember, I don't even know what we did. We were probably just being brats, but like in 5th grade, one of our teachers, probably a sub, started crying. And I just remember that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm powerful in a negative way.
Yeah, like scary.
Yeah, like I didn't realize I have this within me to make an adult cry. And it makes you look at the world a little differently. So I feel like that's what Tony might be going through right now.
Yeah.
So one day, Joel and Tony go to the corner store to buy school supplies. I feel like they're always buying school supplies.
I know.
That's just what they do. Joel, of course, takes 2 pens and puts them into his pocket. And you know he's going to steal those fucking pens.
Yeah.
And then he smiles his douche smirk. And I figured out what I'm picturing when I picture the douche smirk. It's that pharma bro, Martin Shkreli.
Yes. Oh,
right?
God. And he's kind of like handsome in that angel face way that you maybe, but he's actually disgusting.
Right,
like,
right.
That is perfect.
Creepy eyes, just creepy demeanor and like yucky.
Yes, that is Joel.
So Martin Shkreli with like scruffy blonde hair.
Yeah. Wow. I wrote that. That was the only thing I wrote on this page was his shitty smile.
I wanted to read page 134 because this is like this is a great monologue from Tony. I was furious. I mean, really furious. I wanted to punch Joel in the nose. I wanted to mess up his angel face, to see blood ooze out of his nostrils and trickle down his chin. I wanted to look at him in the eye and say, I've had it with you, Joel. You stink. Who do you think you're fooling? You think I'm afraid to tell the manager, don't you? Well, I'm not. Then I'd beckon with my finger and call, Sir, sir. I love this part. This is his fantasy, right? Yes, young man, the manager would say, running towards me. By that time, I'd have Joel by the back of his collar the way Bernice had me that day. I've caught one of those shoplifting kids, sir, I'd say. If you'll check his pockets, you'll find 2 pens, a blue ballpoint and a black felt tip. The manager would check and pull out the pens, and then he'd call the police. The police would arrest Joel and drag him off to the juvenile detention center. My picture would make the front page of the Rosemont Weekly. Soon after, I would be beaten up in the boys' room and left bleeding on the cold floor. My attackers would never be caught, and I would live in fear forever. I like that his fantasy quickly turns to him being beaten up. I mean, that probably would happen. Snitches get stitches, dude.
It's true. But who really likes Joel? So maybe not.
Yeah, that's true. But it just made me think, like, we just didn't rat people out back in the day. There was no tattling.
Yeah.
There was no, it was kind of like us against them. And grown-ups were not to be trusted.
For sure. Yeah. You definitely kept it all within like the class.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And I know we're going off on a lot of tangents, but I wanted to ask you about shoplifting.
Okay.
Have you ever shoplifted?
I have.
Would you like to share?
It was like just candy or something like that.
Yeah.
We thought about shoplifting condoms when we were teenagers because we were like too shy to buy them, but we ended up buying them. It's not a very exciting story.
Well, I was trying to think of my experiences with shoplifting, and I stole a pair of socks once, and that's just kind of a lame story. It was basically like I was with these like new friends I had made. I had just moved to Dallas, older girls, and they were cool. They could drive, and they took me to the mall, and we
Always
went to
those kids.
They didn't shoplift. We went to like Contempo Casuals, my favorite store, and they were buying like cool girl stuff, like accessories and purses, and I was just kind of intimidated by them, and I didn't know like what was cool to like pick out to buy because I only had like $10 or something. So I like picked up a pair of socks, and I was like, these are cool socks. Maybe I'll buy these just so I'm buying something, you know? And then I got to the register and realized that like socks are not cool, and I just didn't suddenly want them to see me buying socks. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to like go put them back, so I just shoved them in my bag and walked out. So it wasn't even anything worthy of stealing, and it wasn't even a thrill to me. It was just like pure necessity, like get these socks out of the way. But I did have a friend in high school who, you know, whenever we go to the mall, she'd want to stop by the makeup store, and she never said anything, but I knew she was stealing because we would go there and just like browse around, and then the next day she'd whip out a new lipstick from her purse.
She hadn't bought anything.
Yeah, and it was just this weird unspoken thing between us. Like I knew she was doing it. She probably knew I knew that she was doing it, but we never said anything. And then she stole my underwear one day. Forgot about that until just now. She spent the night. She was always running away. She would always come to my place. And I guess she didn't pack like clean underwear for the next day. And I remember that day we were like hanging out later, and she leaned over and I saw my underwear on her.
Oh.
And I never said anything.
Weird.
Yeah.
I feel kind of bad for her.
I know. I did. Yeah. I mean, she used to run away for her household was fine.
Yeah. She was just like one of those drama girls.
Yeah. And, I just remember like thinking I would have let you have that if you had asked, but the fact that she like went through my underwear drawer and like took one of my best pairs.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
Wow. Memories. So okay. So Joel has stolen these pens. Tony is in extreme distress. This stresses him out more than anything. He's doubled over in pain. They're outside the shop. He keels over on the sidewalk, and he's out cold. So he's fainted.
Yeah, that is pretty intense. Like all those swallowed feelings. Wow.
Yeah. And then he wakes up, and he's in the children's ward of North Shore Hospital. And he's flat on his back with an IV in his foot.
Yeah,
What does that mean? Do you know anything about IVs in feet?
I do, because poor little Finn, my little boy, when he was born, he had to get on antibiotics, and their big veins are in your feet when you're smaller.
Oh.
And so they put IVs into feet a lot of times on smaller bodies.
So I'm just thinking of like heroin addicts shooting up between their toes. Is that kind of the same vein? Or?
I think so. Yeah, it's like that's probably more to hide it, but I think like in your foot you have that's a good spot to put in an IV.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's like your hand, only they do in your foot instead.
Yeah.
So you have big veins in the top of your hand, and that's more uncomfortable, I think, too. You're more likely to pull it out.
It just makes me cringe.
Ugh. Yeah. Ugh.
And then
don't ever let someone do that. Actually, you should not put IVs into your hand because you can mess up something such that your hand could be unusable for an extended period of time. Always make them do it in your arm.
Fuck. Okay, good to know. So the first thing Tony remembers after waking up in this hospital is his mom bent over his bed, and she's sobbing. She's going, Tony, Tony. And it's the same way she sobs over Vinny's grave whenever they visit his grave every year. So, of course, Tony figures he's dying.
Yeah, poor Tony.
And then here's the situation. Tony has 3 doctors. He's got Dr. Holland. He's like the general practitioner. Dr. Riley, he's the intestines doctor. And then Dr. Fogel is a psychiatrist. And Carmela is having a fit over the psychiatrist.
Of course she is.
She says, there's nothing wrong with Tony's mind. He's not crazy. Psychiatrists are the ones that make you crazy with their crazy questions. Like, I'm just like, what is she trying to hide? I just feel like she's worried Tony's going to say some shit about the family. Or she might be worried what Diane Huber thinks.
Probably.
Mix of both. And then she continues to say, a 13-year-old boy doesn't have any problems. It's just gas. It's just farting. I mean...
Yeah, he's doubled over in pain, like passing out. It's just, no, Mom.
No. That ain't gas, honey.
I liked how calm the dad was, though. He's like a solid guy.
Yeah, he really has Tony's back, and he's very supportive of mental health. And so is Ralph, it seems like.
Yeah.
So Carmela, she's just horrible, but thankfully, the rest of the family kind of shuts her down. And then Tony ends up staying in the hospital for 10 days.
Which seems so many to us now, but I was thinking that's probably because our insurance won't pay for it. Like maybe it was normal back then.
Oh, because I was thinking all these tests he's having done, you could have done as an outpatient.
Yeah, 10 days is a really long time.
When there's nothing actually wrong with you. He's being fed a ton of pills, probably a lot of Valium, as we now know, getting a lot of tests done, having to take some more barium for his X-rays. And now, since you described the whole process, like I'm picturing him strapped to that board and being like rotated around, and it just, so horrible, scary. He can only eat boiled eggs and Jell-O,
which sounds horrible.
Yeah, because I'm just picturing them like all mashed up together.
Oh.
And then on the upside, he gets a ton of gifts.
Okay. Though they're mostly pajamas.
Yeah, they're all pajamas.
It's not that exciting to a 13-year-old boy.
People are so uncreative with these gifts. He gets 11 pairs of PJs.
You don't even wear PJs in the hospital, do you?
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine. Yeah. I don't. Yeah, what are people thinking?
Yeah.
Just uncreative. He gets 6 books, 4 games, 2 bunches of flowers, knitted slippers from Grandma. And that reminds me, oh my God, Grandma's still in her fucking room.
Yep, just trapped in there.
Knitting slippers.
And watching terrible TV.
Mm-hmm. I'm convinced she's watching Three's Company.
Definitely.
24 hours a day, Three's Company. A photo album from Maxine, which is perplexing.
Yeah, and kind of, I guess, nice that it's not pajamas, but it's kind of a weird present.
Maybe she was regifting.
Totally. Like her old employers gave it to her or something.
And then a card from Joel Shkreli. With the shoplifted pen in the envelope. And I was like, is he like taunting Tony?
But Tony never said anything to him, so.
I don't know. And then he gets a very sweet and sincere letter from Corky. Dear Tony, I'm very sorry to hear that you're sick. I hope you'll be better soon. I really mean that. I miss you a lot. Homeroom isn't any fun when you're absent. I really mean that, even if you don't care about me. Because even if you don't, I still care about you. And I mean really, all caps. Because I think you're swell. And that's the truth. I hope when you get better, you'll come to a party I'm planning. I don't know when it will be. Maybe not until the summer. But I'm planning it anyway. Except I wouldn't even have it if you weren't better or if you won't come. Because I think you're the nicest boy I know. And that's the truth. So please get well soon. And I really mean that. Love and things, Corky, in parentheses, Catherine Thomas, just in case he does not know who Corky is. Love and things.
Things.
Is that a greet or not a greeting, like a sign off that I'm not aware of?
I think maybe she means XOXO and she just didn't feel bold enough to write it.
I'm going to start saying love and things much more regularly.
I like it.
Mm-hmm. So she really likes Tony and she really means it.
Really?
And it sounds like she's having this party just so Tony will come.
Yeah, pretty much.
I like how bold she is. When I liked a boy at that age, I was never so bold.
No, and she doesn't even care if he likes her back. She's just like, hey, I like you. She's pretty awesome.
Yeah. This reminds me a lot of the Wonder Years.
Yes.
And because I think I looked up the dates and Tony is like Kevin Arnold's exact age and the exact same like time frame.
That makes sense.
So yeah, just picture all the fashions and like
Yeah.
the kind of the leather jackets they used to wear and like the straight leg like khakis and Converse and
Kevin Arnold kind of reminds me of Tony a little bit. Kind of like a little bit dorky and
but like good guy.
Yeah, but a good guy.
Makes some
likable.
bad decisions.
Yeah.
So do you remember on that show there was that girl Becky Slater?
Oh yes.
So that's kind of what I'm picturing Corky. Just very, very forward.
Yeah.
Very obsessed. Oh yeah, I think it's your turn, huh?
Well, I just wanted to mention he decides not to tear up the letter and to keep it in case he wants to reread it.
Yeah.
He's coming around.
He is.
Then when you turn the page, he gets a special visitor.
This is his best
Yes, his best gift of all was Lisa.
Woo!
So yeah, Lisa walks in and he cannot believe it. So apparently Joel is too young to come visit. I guess you have to be over 14.
Yeah.
14 or over. And she comes in and he's just so glad to see her. And she brings a dirty book that Joel has marked up just for him. And Lisa's aware that it's a dirty book, which I think she kind of, I think she's definitely into him having a crush on her, and she's not uncomfortable at all bringing him this dirty book. And I think she's just teasing him a little. She leans over and puts it under his pillow and kind of brushes against him.
Totally.
Yeah, he thinks she smells really nice. Then he has another one of his fantasies, and I'm going to read this fantasy out loud because I really enjoyed this. Right then was the perfect time to tell Lisa I love her, that I've been watching her since Thanksgiving, that I'm really older than she thinks because I started school 3 years late, since my real family are gypsies who roam the world, of course. I was adopted by the Migliones, who brought me to Rosemont. And even though we're the same age, almost, I've had so much experience, much more than her, that we'd be perfect together. When I get out of the hospital, we can run off and never be seen again. We'll live on some deserted island, and all we'll wear is flowers.
All we'll wear is flowers.
Yeah, it's a little romantic and dirty at the same time.
Do you think he saw Blue Lagoon?
That was my first thought with that.
You thought of Blue Lagoon? That's so funny. But I think Blue Lagoon came out in, I think, a bit later.
Yeah, so my first thought was Blue Lagoon, and because I was like, where does a teenage boy get this vision?
Right.
And then I thought maybe one of his dirty books.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so Blue Lagoon, then dirty book was my thought process.
Yeah, because the dirty books are constantly mentioned, but we have no idea what these are. Are they like romance novels? Are they like pornos? Are they?
Yeah, no, I think they're just romance novels. I bet he like just nicks them from his mom and
just like underlines like the throbbing member kind of verbiage.
Her Yanni aching for his
aching. That's always
aching, throbbing,
hungry,
moist.
Oh God.
Yeah, so he has his little fantasy, but then he falls asleep and she's gone when he wakes up, which is kind of sad. He might have gotten a hug out of the situation if he'd stayed awake.
Dude, that Valium, it's just like knocking him out at all the wrong times.
So a few days later, he's completely fine and gets to leave the hospital. And he's going to keep seeing Dr. Fogel, which is, I think, really good because he definitely needs to talk to someone. Mm-hmm. He only saw him once in the hospital, but he actually liked him a lot, which is good. I think probably most preteens could be helped by seeing someone.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so when I was pretty much exactly his age, was fighting with my mom constantly. We were just like at each other's throats. And my parents decided that I should see a therapist. I think my mom saw one too, to kind of learn how we should deal with each other. But I, being a little asshole, refused to talk to her. I refused to even sit in her chair. Yeah. And I sat on the floor practicing my sign language and occasionally swearing at her in sign language, which she didn't understand. And I did that for probably 3 sessions until she just told my parents she's the most stubborn person I've seen. And I'm not going to be able to do anything because she won't talk to me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wait, I need to like paint this picture. So you're in the therapist's office.
Yep. And she's kind of like a child-ish therapist because I think I was about 12.
Yeah.
So you like go in and it's kind of, a waiting room with some toys and stuff, maybe some art supplies. You go into her room and there's this, comfy chair in the corner. She wanted me to sit in, would not sit in it. I sit on the floor. just refused to talk to her, refused to interact with her, just sit there practicing sign language for an hour.
So like weird and defiant and like hilarious. And like of all the things to do is sit there signing to yourself.
Yeah. I don't think I realized that it was like just between us. I kind of felt like, oh, this woman's on my mom's side. And
right.
Yeah.
I was the same. I did not trust.
Yeah. Don't trust the adults.
And
yeah.
Like maybe that's just our generation. Because I feel like kids now are much more open to talking about their problems, which is good. But I had a similar thing. I mean, it was not nearly as cool as what you did. But
cool.
When I was in like 5th grade, and I still have no idea what all this was about, but the school I went to, this was in New Orleans. It was super small school. And like one day in social studies, this like the school counselor came to sit in on our classroom and just kind of observed. And, didn't really think anything of it. But I'm convinced she was there to observe me because like a couple of days later, I got called to her office. No one else got called to her office.
Oh, weird.
And she started asking me all these questions like, they were all like self-esteem related. I remember specifically she asked, if you had to, she drew this like scale, like a 1 to 10 scale. She's like, if you had to rate yourself like intelligence wise compared to your classmates, where would you rate yourself? And how is your home life? Do your parents like compliment you? Do they support you? And I mean, immediately on guard, you know, like what's she getting at? I think adults think that kids are just going to answer your questions at face value, but like they don't realize that you're analyzing their questions and like trying to figure out what they want to hear, what they're getting at. So I just remember like, when I had to like rate my like level of intelligence, I was like, okay, well, if I say too low, then she's going to think I have low self-esteem. If I say too high, she's going to think I'm bragging. So I put it like around 7, just a little higher than average.
7.
Yep. And then I remember, of course, home life is fine, and even if it wasn't, I wouldn't have said anything to her. But now that I'm an adult, I'm just like, what was that all about?
Yeah, and that's weird.
I think it was because, I got in trouble a lot. I wasn't a bad kid, but I was kind of like you, like defiant and didn't pay attention a lot, talked a lot in class. If you can imagine that. And just like didn't follow directions and that kind of shit. And I think I rolled my eyes a lot. I remember getting in trouble for rolling my eyes at teachers like all the time.
Teachers can be really dumb.
Yeah. And always having like lunch detentions. Always one of the few girls in lunch detention, but also kind of like thinking that was cool. Like, yeah, I'm bad.
Yeah.
Had a Saturday detention in 5th grade once. Had to come in on a Saturday and write lines and clean off the leaves of a potted plant in the hallway with a paper towel and a spray bottle.
Wow.
It's a good punishment, right?
Yeah.
Anywho, fuck the system.
Yeah, seriously. All right. So he's seeing this therapist, this psychiatrist. He actually is really getting something out of it. They talk about his anger at Joel being such a shit, which I think is really good for him to get out. And then he talks about his mom and he tells what's happening with his grandma. I kind of was disappointed that Dr. Fogel didn't say more back.
Right.
Like try to give him some, maybe he will, but try to give him some dealing with this situation tips because this stuff is really killing him, or not literally, but it's really
could eventually.
So I was kind of hoping he would get a little bit more help.
But he was just talking like the entire hour. There was no room for help.
Yeah, he was just talking the whole time. Just talking about his fears, about how his mom is so terrible, because his mom is terrible. Yeah, so he just goes through that whole thing, and he's impressed with his father and how stoic his father is and happy-go-lucky. I thought it was kind of interesting. It was making me think about gender roles back then and even now still, like whether his father was just checked out of the family a little bit and that's why he just didn't care. If my wife was like that and like locking her mother up in this weird situation and my son was having all these medical problems, I would be taking a closer look at what was going on with my family. But he seems to just be like, oh, well, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, he's probably immersing himself in his work and maybe he feels powerless. Oh my God, he's just like that Valium ad. He's surrounded by domineering women, and maybe he just
checks out.
Yeah.
And Tony talks to Dr. Fogel about kind of the root of his fears a little bit. He's talking about, why do I care so much about Joel stealing?
Yeah.
And he says, I'm going to read this part directly from the book. He says, it really gets me. Sometimes I think people can see inside me, that they know what I'm thinking and everything. I don't want anyone to know what I'm thinking. Like that time Joel called me chicken. I didn't want to make that phone call. I know they can trace phone calls, so why should I care if Joel calls me chicken? But you do care, says the psychiatrist. Yeah, I guess I do. And another thing, sometimes I wish we still lived in Jersey City, and other times I'm glad we don't. You know what? I like having plenty of money. Oh, I don't know what I want. So poor, I mean, that's poor
his
Tony.
in-between jacket.
Yeah. Aww.
And this is getting really deep thoughts, but when he says, sometimes I feel like everyone can see inside me, XRays.
Yes, X-rays.
So many X-rays in this book.
And kind of thinking back about Lisa and the binoculars, like he's being a perv, but maybe he's also just trying to feel close to someone else a little bit, and that's maybe giving him too much credit. But
yeah, I think he just wants some more
perv.
boners.
He just wants, yeah.
But no, that's a really good point, though. I mean, there's always behind every boner is a deep thought. Oh.
Yeah. So he has this session with Dr. Fogel, and at the end, when he suddenly realizes that the hour is up, he wishes that he hadn't talked so much. And
yeah.
I can share that feeling, because that's exactly why I didn't talk at all when I had to go as a child, because I just didn't want this person to know me.
Yeah. I get that feeling a lot sometimes after like one too many drinks after a night out. Like the next day I'm like, oh my God, like what was I saying? Next time I go out, I'm just going to let the other person do all the talking. You know, I think we all get that, but I like his plan that when he goes back to his next session, he's just going to let the psychiatrist do all the talking. Like,
which doesn't work.
No. He should just try some sign language.
Yes, he should. That was an excellent distraction.
Sorry to
a
little sidebar, but now I'm just so curious about swearing in sign language. Do you remember any?
I don't. I don't.
I remember only one, and this is Australian sign language, which is different than American sign language, but it's bullshit. And I love it because it's literally you're making like a bowl out of both your arms, and then you wiggle.
Oh yeah, that's
this,
great.
And it's the shit coming out of the end of the bowl.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, I don't really remember any. The reason reason I learned it was because the principal at our school wouldn't let us talk during lunch, and so we were all learning sign language so we could talk, which is ridiculous. Who doesn't let kids talk during lunch?
That is crazy.
And he had a whistle that he would blow if we tried to talk.
What kind of school?
It was a Montessori school, but this guy, he was a new principal to the school. I think he'd been in the army or something. He was
not letting you talk at lunch, putting students in charge of each other.
Yeah.
Sounds like prison.
It was probably just a great, huge experiment.
And they're like secretly tracking you to see, you know, how well you did like later in life. And didn't you say the school got shut down?
Yes, that one did get shut down because the owner of the school was stealing money. Like stealing all the money and not paying the teachers.
It gets better and better. Oh my God.
Drama.
I mean, Montessori schools, you always think of them as being so like pure and, you know.
Yeah. This guy, not so much, the owner there. And he hired that weird principal. Of course, when Tony comes out of the session, his mom has to throw in there that she's glad it went well because it's expensive. Like, come on. She's throwing money away on these in-between coats, and she doesn't even care about her own kid being happy because she's so selfish.
Because it's just gas.
Just gas.
Is that it for chapter 8?
Oh, yeah, that is it for chapter 8.
Wow. Only 2 more chapters left.
Yeah, almost to the end.
There's so few pages left for any like kind of resolution. Like, I have no idea how this is going to end. And now we're going to finish up this episode with some letters. We're going to get to them today, right now. I'll start with a letter from Bloomhead Kim. Hi, are you there, Blume Saloon? It's me again. Because she's written us before. I sorted a box of really old stuff yesterday and came across this reply to my letter to Judy Blume in 1982. Thought you might be interested to see it. Apparently, she received a lot of fan mail. Love ya, Kim, in Cincinnati.
So cool.
She had written Judy a letter, and then Judy sent this beautiful pre-scripted package of correspondence back to Kim, and we're gonna post this.
Ooh.
I'm not gonna read the whole thing because there's a lot, but first there's a letter from Judy, and it's got all these pictures of Judy with her daughter, and they all look so young and 70s and fresh and hip. And it says, "Hi, thanks so much for your nice letter. I wish I could write to you individually, but then I would never have time to finish another book. I hope you'll understand. The letters I receive from my young readers are very important to me, and the highlight of my day is sitting down to read my mail. Because writing is such a lonely work, and I am really a people person, your letters remind me that I'm not alone." I love that.
Yeah.
Then she goes on, "Most of you want to know where I get my ideas. That's a scary question because I'm not sure. Ideas seem to come from everywhere. In Blubber, I drew heavily on an incident that took place in my daughter's classroom. The idea for Deanie came from a woman whose daughter had scoliosis. I wrote, 'It's not the end of the world,' because I knew many families who were suffering the pains of divorce. Since that time, I've experienced divorce myself, and while it wasn't easy, it wasn't the end of the world for any of us. The idea for the book, Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, came from a news article about a real toddler who actually swallowed a pet turtle." And I forgot that happened.
I did too until just now.
And now it makes me so mad at Fudge. He swallowed a turtle.
Yeah.
I'm so mad. You should not eat animals like that.
My dad in college got dared to do that with a goldfish. It was all the rage, but he felt so guilty immediately.
Yeah.
He made himself throw it back up, and it was alive and lived.
Yay!
Its fins were a little frayed, but it was
Good for your dad. Oh, that was definitely a thing that people did for a while.
Yeah, this was like probably in like 71 or something. So right around now, it could have been Josh would do it. Joel. I keep calling him Josh.
Because you had a boyfriend named Josh, didn't you?
5th grade.
Nothing makes me madder, though, than like people fucking with animals like that. No
Needless
matter how
cruelty.
small.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I based the character of Fudge on my own son, Larry, who we know now was her co-director and producer and writer for the Tiger Eyes movie. And Super Fudge is my newest book about the adventures of Fudge and his family. And then she goes on a couple more paragraphs, and, we'll post this so you can read it all for yourself. And Kim even kept the envelope it came in. It's postmarked September 15th, 1982. Mailed from New York. Oh, and then there's like a little bit about the Judy Blume diary. And Judy says, "The reason for the diary is because so many kids write saying, 'I have no one to talk to, no one to answer my questions, no one to share my feelings.' The diary, published by Dell Publishing Company, is a place to write down all those thoughts and feelings. Sometimes just writing them down makes you feel better." And that's that. I love it. Thank you so much, Kim, for writing that in. And then a really quick note from Bloomhead Melissa. The subject is "Holding Out on Us, ... And then she writes, "I need to see Jody's 17 magazine spread." We hear you loud and clear. I will post that.
Yes, we definitely need to see that. I haven't even seen that yet. I'm here in the cocoon.
Oh, man. I know. Like, part of me is very proud of it, and part of me is very ashamed. All right. And then, Beth, you have a letter for us.
Yes, this is from Jimmy. The subject is questions. "Hello. I have listened to every single episode of the podcast. I have tweeted Jim Buffett, Judith Blume, and Chris Gethard about the podcast's fascinating and funny episodes."
Oh my God.
Very, very earnest.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Yes. Doesn't say if any of them replied, but here we go. "Which brings me to a point of concern. Is Allison going to take a leave of absence? Baby?" Yes. The answer is yes. "Will Jody be forced to do an episode or two about what didn't make it into the pod?"
Oh, we did that.
Yep. "Will Jody figure out where is Davy's edited scene in Tiger Eyes?"
That's on the to-do list.
"Will we need more legal advice if Allison disappears from the podcast?"
Yes.
Always need legal advice. Mm-hmm. "Does the pod need to address Judy Blume's prose and fiction?"
Ooh. Oh, I think he's just asking.
Yes, her writing
we talk
style.
More about fair point. We could do that.
Yeah.
There's not much to say though.
She's pretty straightforward.
Except for her very, very layered metaphors of the in-between jacket and the X-rays. But we should do more of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll keep an eye on that and think about that during the last 2 chapters here. "Surely Davy had a Jersey accent because, after all, she is from the shore. This is important. Davy didn't swear. Nor did her mother."
What?
yeah, there's just periods between those. So Surely Davy had a Jersey accent because after all, she is from the shore. This is important. I guess maybe he means that it's surprising she didn't swear.
I don't think there's a whole lot of swearing in Judy books in general. But yeah, that's an interesting point.
Maybe he is relating that to us analyzing.
Because we swear a lot?
Well, maybe. Or analyzing what she does and doesn't choose to have people say.
Yeah.
We'll think about that some more too. Well, I have many, many questions, obviously. Period. Never fear. I will continue to listen to the cast because I know I'll get a good chortle. Is that how you say that word? Chortle. Chortle. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oof. I don't think I've ever said that word out loud. Chortle. Give us a good chortle, Jody.
Oh, that's like reminds me of my sister. The word misled, like MISLED. Finally realized the word wasn't pronounced missiled because she was like, I've only read that word. I've never actually used it speaking out loud in a sentence, and I've always in my head it was always missiled.
Have you ever used chortled? Have you ever referred to someone
that's in the Jabberwocky poem?
Okay, which you've heard out loud.
In his joy.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think I've heard anyone read that poem out loud.
I've heard it recited.
Which I should do because that's really nice language and it's probably meant to be heard aloud.
I will refer you to my source.
Ooh.
It is on a VHS I have called The Muppet Weird Stuff, and it's the best, one of the best things I own. It's all like weird, like the weirdest outtakes of the Muppet Show.
God.
Not outtakes, because you know, but
fake
just like,
outtakes.
Yeah, it's
that sounds incredible.
They act out the Jabberwocky with all their like crazy little Muppets. It's
wow,
great.
That's definitely online, and that sounds so good because I love the Muppets. Mm-hmm. All right, he says he'll get a good chortle and continue to recommend your podcast to me amigos.
Aw,
thank you so much,
Jimmy. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of great questions. I mean, you've set some goals for us.
Yep.
Talk more about prose, Davy's lack of swearing, and chortle a little more. All right, guys, we are done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And thank you for listening, and thank you so much for rating and reviewing us. If you haven't already, please do. It makes a huge difference for us It makes a huge difference in us spreading the word and getting new listeners, which is, what we want to do. We want to spread the Blume Head love, just like the Parrot Head love, all over the world.
And speaking of spreading love, shout out to Babysitters Club. Apparently today is the anniversary of the Babysitters Club as a series birth.
Whoa.
I follow the author on Facebook, and she
and
wrote today.
M. Martin.
Yeah, she wrote today is the birthday. I think August 1st, 1983.
Oh, wow.
Maybe it was 86. I forget now, but
because I remember I started picking them up in like 88, and it was like had been around a couple years before that. Wow.
So it's the birthday today. So shout out to Babysitters Club for being another important to young readers.
I think a good way to end this episode is to ask, if you were to be one of the babysitters, who would you be?
I'm going to think about this because I am definitely a mix. I have some,
I would say you got a little bit of Christy in you.
Yep, I do.
Got a little bit of Dawn.
Yep.
Can I just assign them to you?
Yeah, do it.
I would say Christy, Dawn, and a little bit of Claudia.
All right.
1/3 of each.
Sometimes I was afraid that I had a little Mallory in me.
Oh, no. Just because you have red hair.
I don't know.
That's the only thing you have in common with Mallory.
I think that was just, a fear. What if I'm a Mallory?
No one wants to be a Mallory. Oh, my God.
You definitely have a lot of Claudia. Yeah, I think you do have a little Christy. You run your own business.
Thank you. I'll take that.
Mostly Claudia, though.
A lot of junk food. All right. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.